Welcome to Tea Time with Talent Acquisition, the podcast aimed at fostering knowledge and sharing stories within the vibrant talent acquisition community. I'm your host, Eden, and for the next hour or so, I'm going to be joined by a people and culture leader with a multilingual and multicultural background who has built people programs and hiring strategies from early stage to fast scaling teams. He's best known for blending empathy with data, building strong systems, and removing blockers and creating candidate experiences that are rooted in with respect and active listening. As head of talent acquisition, she's helped scale her last company's workforce fivefold, partnering with executives to design data-driven hiring strategies and establish the people operations team that has become the foundation for the future growth. And what makes today's conversation so important is going back to the beginning. It's focusing on part before the fivefold, where processes and systems, structures and branding, they're not necessarily on your side. What it's like to really be back at a 0 to 1 or a 1 to 10 stage company. This isn't just about hiring a process design, it's about rethinking how people team can truly enable the business. So when you're ready, grab your favorite tea or coffee if you prefer. And please join me in welcoming today's guest, Head of Talent Acquisition, Zvjezdana Topalović. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Eden, for having me.
I appreciate it. And like I said, this is a conversation that not many people are really going to have that really unique experience of the super early stage, but those that do stick around and listen to it, hopefully there's a lot that we're going to take away from your own experiences. But before we get into that, as you know, there's a question I kick off every episode with, and we've switched it up recently. So you're probably sitting thinking, what the hell is he going to be bringing up? So from your perspective, where do you believe, or what do you believe rather, is going to be the biggest challenge us in the recruitment or talent acquisition space is going to face in the next 3 years?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Curveball.
I think there's going to be a couple of challenges, but I think something that concerns me is whether we're going to preserve the essence of good recruitment with the advance of technology. What I mean by that is it's wonderful that we test the tools, play with tools, and so on. Obviously need them in talent operations and so on. But I think the essence of good recruitment is that connection you create with the candidate, the storytelling element, right? Being able to convey to the candidate what it is that you have as a challenge and where you need them to join, and to inspire them to want to join you, right? And I think it's really the time you take to have that proper conversation, right? Which really happens at the screening stage. So I hope we don't eliminate that with any number of tools, right? I think that's going to be very, very challenging for us as a profession.
I agree massively, but I also see a lot of these, and especially when we talk about early stage companies as well, I'm seeing a ton lean into AI sourcing and AI screening, and I don't know. I'm lost a little bit for it. I agree wholeheartedly. I think that is probably one of my biggest fears is, and not because it puts me necessarily out of a job. I think it's only going to fortify our job, because people who use it are going to see, yes, it can do it, but you're going to have in my opinion, a lower kind of progression rate. People will drop off quicker in all parts of the process if it's completely automated.
Yeah, I think we need to think about where it is that this brings us value. Not removing the human component, right? Removing other stuff. I'm all for automated scheduling, coordination, any kind of prompts, notification that allows us not to mess up candidate experience, right? But when it comes to talking to people, if you think about it, if AI interviews people and then you ask them to produce something that is based on their human experience and the years of experience that they're bringing to company, that doesn't really work, right? So it's going to be sort of game playing on both sides, right? So I truly don't think that you can replace the essence of recruitment by AI. Just equip yourself with it to help you, right? But I think it's a challenge for people coming into this profession, right? So for them, what the essence of recruitment will be, they will need to have enough patience to allow themselves to be trained, mentored, and make many mistakes we have made along the way, and then use the tools to do the job properly. Nothing replaces that conversation, that connection, right? I'm sure you've had in your career people who have told you, I joined this company because of you, because you interviewed me, because you inspired me or infected me, right? So I think that's something that will need to be the guiding light. That's at least my opinion. I may be replaced with this.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll find out in a few years. Let's still get in 3 years and see. No, but I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that leads very nice into what we want to talk about, which is that initial early stage. Because now that all these tools are available, it can be quite easy for a founder to go, hey, I'm gonna go buy that tool, and that's gonna cost me 15 grand a year instead of hiring a recruiter that's gonna cost me 50 grand a year, for example, right? So you can see it's going to lean into it, but there's a lot of things that we do, or especially in that early stage experience that you've done, that no amount of tooling is going to be able to replace. So I guess let's start at the beginning, if it's cool, because obviously you've got this brilliant background, and like I said in the intro, you kind of helped grow the last company a fivefold, but you joined when it was a very early business, right? There's no structure, no process, no system. There's a lot of people that, like I said, aren't necessarily going to have that experience today, but they might be interested by that experience in the future. Where do you start? If you've got nothing in front of you, how the hell do you start doing your job? What was kind of like the first initial thoughts that were going through your head? What the first steps, as it were?
Yeah, I think before even that first starting point, I would say why you should do it or who should do it. You need to be deeply hungry for experimenting and for building, and you need to thrive in places where there's chaos, but there could potentially be something in the future, right? And if you're scared of that, if you're expecting structure at that level, forget about it. Even I was really ready for where I was starting, and even then the starting point wasn't there. It was some structural problems that existed before. So it wasn't even talent acquisition, it was something else, right? So I would say be very ready for that adventure and choose it carefully. It's not for everyone, really. Later, maybe we can talk a little bit about why you should choose it, right? But I would say if you do choose it, and the starting point really needs to be listening carefully and observing a lot. I think I have bias for action, but you need to resist wanting to just start doing things, because early stage startups are very interesting places where there have been things happening in a sort of non-organized way. And you have the founders who have brilliant ideas. They have people who they bring in, but these people don't necessarily have any experience hiring people or managing people. They may know their recruitment partners from elsewhere, from before, but it will be all sort of done in a sort of haphazard way, right? It won't be really well organized. So you need to really observe and listen and try not to impose anything on anyone very early on. I think that's a very, very, very good starting point, because there will also be fear and resistance towards someone who is coming in to organize everything, right? Especially another thing I noticed that in early stage startups, you also have resistance towards HR traditionally as a function. They think like, oh, they're bringing us structure, they're bringing us processes. Now we're going to lose the essence of who we are, right? That's something that is really important. That was like that was the starting point for me. And then from that point, listening to people, understanding what troubles them, what their pain points are, what their sort of most burning questions are. Slowly try to make sense out of things, and also start to put the building blocks for what you want to achieve and what you can achieve in a certain amount of time, right? I think that's a very important part of conversation, which is, okay, all of this has to be done, but how do we prioritize this, right? There you have to have really, really honest and transparent relationship and regular conversations with the founders or whoever you are reporting into. In my case, was one of the co-founders. It's about, okay, we agree we want this, but now you're bringing in another piece. Hold on, maybe not now, maybe in 3 months' time or 6 months' time. Or if we are prioritizing, then we have to take something from the list, right? So that's something that is they need to keep like on top of your mind all the time, and need to have these little pushbacks, on weekly basis, right? Because you're one person team. There's no one else.
How do you find that balance though? Because you rightfully said, right, and I'm probably the same and biased towards action. I see someone I want to get at it, and it is hard to kind of take that step back. So how do you find that balance between you're there to do a job, right? They've employed you to come in do that job, but you're sitting there going back, whoa, observing for a moment, like how soon's too soon, how long's too late. Again, it's like striking that balance between one being pulled
Yeah.
by this founder over here and this person wants this, and there's only one of me.
Yeah. So you will lose it, at times, and you will be, deep into something, and you'll realize, okay, maybe this is taking too long or whatever. So you're not going to be a perfect person who will know how to balance everything all the time, right? I think there's very important distinction between what is a true priority for the company, what is something that is blocking the business from progressing in terms of hiring, and what is something that people hail as priority, but is actually just accumulation of tasks, right? So it's important to give your attention and to listen to everyone in the company, who is in the position to hire for their team, and then bring these conversations to the leadership team, to the founders, say, okay, which of these roles are blocking the business at the moment? If we can identify 1, 2, 3 roles, then you have to parallelly start working on them. So you have to start the recruitment process on them already, right? Because otherwise, there's no point building the structure while nobody's getting hired, right? But you cannot prioritize all the roles. Surely not all of them can be priority, right? And if they have been open for, say, 6 months, well, what's happening in those 6 months? They can't be that important, right? So for me, that distinction between really key role and then accumulation of tasks that may or may not turn out to be the role once we talk about it in depth is really, really key. And then trying to slowly educate the hiring managers on what the recruitment should look like. So remember, at that stage, recruitment agencies, external recruitment agencies are being used, or direct sort of sourcing is being done by hiring managers. So there's no structure at all. Sometimes you will see also that the recruitment processes that they are in place are overcomplicated, too long, they are blocked. But that's also because there's no talent operation structure in place, right? There's usually no ATS, or it's used to 10% of its capacity. Nobody's actually managing the process, right? So you have to start putting some of the building blocks there. What happened, for instance, in my case, is that people would have different questions, and because I couldn't get to all of them, what I would do is try to see patterns in what people were asking me, and then start creating some material for them to read, and not block my time, not being in the calls all the time, right? So yeah. Three people ask me about, I don't know, how to put an evaluation about a candidate, or how to integrate the Google Calendar with the tool, or whatever it is, right? Whatever might be the case, I would say, okay, this deserves its own Notion page or Confluence page was using it at the time, right? So, hey, everyone, this is where you can find answers to these questions, or keep popping questions here and I'll get to them, right? So if you're in real time with everyone who has a question, you'll never get anything done. Absolutely nothing.
Protected your time by creating the material that other people could utilize.
Yeah, exactly. And also not looking at the talent function or people and culture function as service, right? So this is an issue. This is an issue with how talent acquisition is perceived in a company. You can help sort of change that perception or build that perception, but you're not a yes person, right? If you just jumped at every request, you wouldn't make good hiring. Maybe you would make quick hiring, but you wouldn't make good hiring. But your job is to say no more times than you say yes, right? Because your idea when you build this kind of function is to be a strategic partner to the leadership team and to the business, right? And not just execute the hiring. So many times, as I said before, when you delve deeper into a rec somebody has raised, you will see that there's no good case for hiring. It's something else that is the issue, right? Accumulation of tasks that can be redistributed, or changing the workflow, or changing roles slightly internally, or bringing in somebody you can train from scratch, right? But you need to be able to question every single rec that you get. That's something that is really important. And your job is not to be popular. Your job is to deliver the right talents that can help the business grow, right? And it's sometimes a lonely place, especially in the beginning and when you're on your own. But eventually, through good work, you start getting the respect and trust of the leaders, and then you use that momentum to build on further initiatives that you need to build.
What would you say are some of the friction points in the earlier period of time? Maybe when you're working directly with founders, that maybe you didn't foresee or you kind of knew were going to be there, but maybe they were a little bit compounded or bigger than you first thought?
Yeah. So,
In that early stage.
well, quite a few, I would say. Like your own relationship with the founders. Usually they're very smart, very energetic people, but they shoot ideas at an incredible pace. And they're sometimes not aware of what it takes to execute some of those ideas, or that those ideas need to be validated, right? So that's something that is going to be your kind of friction point in that relationship with the founder. Then with the existing team, you have to remember, like if the startup starts, it started with like 3 people, then 10 people, and so on. People have an incredible sense of ownership, right? And then they may become really married to the ways they work, right? And they exert a lot of influence on the founder. So when you tell them that something they're doing in a certain way is not the optimal way, you have to get prepared for them going behind your back and complain to the founder about you and your ways of work, right? So, and then it's the question of using data and using market trends to persuade them that it's not that you're trying to correct them or do better than them. It's just that you need to optimize the way you hire or do certain things, right? But be ready for that. Then suddenly, like the founder called you and say, "Oh, this person complained because they don't like this or they don't like that," right? So it's not about you doing something because you think it's the right way. It's because you do something because of the experience and what the market trends are saying, right? You can't find this person for this amount of money, or you can't find this person in this location, or if you advertise the role as such, it's not going to happen. Or if you are interviewing for 4 hours, nobody's going to want to participate in your hiring process, right? So these kind of things, right? And then I wouldn't call this necessarily friction, but it's going to play a big role is just the maturity of the hiring managers and people managers. Like usually people are in their mid-late 20s, they're first-time managers. It's not that they don't want to do a good job or they're doing something because out of spite. It's just they haven't had this opportunity. So there's a lot of training, a lot of mentoring going into helping them become hiring managers, helping them become better at interviewing people, better at managing people, right?
Yeah, I think that one. So that's what we're talking about. This is a lot of the recruitment I do. There's a misalignment sometimes in what managers think they can get versus what they can really get. And a lot of the time, it's a lot of coaching at the beginning just to explain, look, I would love to get you the Cambridge PhD student that speaks fluent German, that's willing to work 90-hour weeks for 60K. I would love to do that for you, but it's just not possible. So it's a lot of I do find, I think, and again, you can step into leadership, you can do anything at any age, but I do find the ones that are more mature, they've been around the block, as it were, they've maybe had another company or led at least a few people, they're a little bit more receptive to listen and understand. Even sometimes I feel like when you put data in front of them, some of these managers, they don't accept the data. They're like, well, if you can't do it, I'll find someone else. It's like, well, okay,
go ahead. Yeah, I've had that too.
I have that luxury of being able to go away. It's fine. But what happens then when if you've got, and again, you're an internal and you've got these managers that simply are not listening? How do we get through to them if the data isn't working? Or yeah.
We have expression here in Spain that we use. It's not a very nice one, but it means something like let them go into their own death. You know what I mean? Like let them experiment and make a mistake. Déjales matarse would be here, but basically allow the course of action, and they will learn, right? And it's not about proving yourself right, but it's about them seeing the context, seeing what there is, and understanding what you were telling them, right? So you can't always afford that, but as much as you should, especially in the beginning, allow people to do that, right? You go ahead, work with your standard partner, let's see who you can bring, right? And then I had this, and they would be like, oh, I have this brilliant person. You're like, yes, but they are based in India. Oh, but what happens? We cannot hire in India.
Yeah.
Oh, why not? Because this or that. Oh, we can, but this is how much it costs. Oh, but I cannot afford it, right? So it's working within the constraints that you have. And the example you gave, like, oh, get me a Cambridge PhD with German, whatever. But do you really need this person? I mean, what is the job description at hand? Like, what is the job that needs to be done? I think understanding what the job is and presenting it as such is something that shouldn't be such an issue, and it is, right? So give me a job description where you tell people what the team is, what the challenge is, and how they would help, and then we can work with that, right? So we talk a lot about the metrics, right? But in the end, that time to alignment is very important for me. That's the metric that I looked at most. So from that first signal of I need someone, or I think I need someone, to we are able to open this role and go out and find candidates, you need to aim at shortening this time. And that can only happen through really in-depth and honest and detailed intake calls, right? Not like, oh, I need this person, let's jump and look for them. No. Where does this role sit within the organizational design? Where is this going to, what is going to happen with this role in 6 months or 9 months? We can't look much further because it's early stage startup, there's pivoting, and this is understandable, right? So you cannot be really rigid, but you need to shape the role so you can shape the candidate persona, right? Because you cannot go out there and then bring in someone, and then after 3 months they realize they don't need this person, it's not the right person. So you make further damage to the non-existent employer branding, right? So you have many things that you have to think about. And, you know, the employer branding piece, well, it doesn't exist. So you're the employer brand. So your word has to have integrity out there. So you need to be very, very careful what you go to the candidate with, right? And it cannot be sort of like half-baked job description or half-baked role, right?
See a lot of times on job descriptions, I can tell generally the ones that are written by founders more than talent professional now, but they use the phrase like grit a lot. In the context of an early stage startup, what do we mean when someone says the word we want grit? Someone's got grit. What are we actually saying?
Oh, there's so many words like that, and we need to be careful how we use them. And from the perspective of the founder, just because their startup is the center of the world for them, it may be nothing for the candidate. We need to like put these things into perspective. But generally what you mean is, what you look for is the attitude that will help the candidate work through many and varied problems, elements of chaos and ambiguity in startup, right? So this is about the attitude you bring in, right? Ultimately, you hire for attitude and learning agility, right? But you need to make it worthwhile for the candidate. Like, why would somebody just say, hey, this sounds like crazy problem, I'm just going to leave my safe job and jump in? You need to understand from the perspective of like, what are they getting in return? Usually it's the learning opportunity, right? An opportunity to make an impact, an opportunity to eventually earn a nice salary and get equity or whatever it is, right? But you're looking at this services, you're looking at this attitude. But in order to maintain like those kind of candidates, they're high maintenance in the sense that you need to keep them motivated. You need to give them projects that are interesting to work on. And you also need to lead them with a lot of transparency, because the moment they feel like, oh, okay, so this set of rules applies for me, but not for other people, they will lose the trust, right? So I think in that sense, if founders want these kind of strong candidates who are happy to go through any kind of levels of ambiguity and continue with the company, they need to also show respect from their end and lead with transparency, lead with integrity, and own up when shitty situations are happening, right? So it's a relationship that can only work both ways.
I think that's also, we talk about the beginning with these AI tools, and I always bring it back to like early stage companies, because I do like there's, yes, in every company you're testing for your soft skills, the alignment, the culture, of course, is important for everything. But grit is the thing that I always think of in these early stage companies. You're right. It's not something you can put on a CV. Like you can write it. You can say, I dance in the chaos and I work on zero to one. Great.
You have to show it.
It's these conversations we have here that you sit back and go, you get it. You understand when shit hits the fan, you're going to stick it out and not just like update your CV, which I do feel like, again, AI is great at potentially showcasing group of people, but I even think even then, when I'm doing my sourcing for these early stage companies, I'm not looking for companies only up to 10 people. I'm looking for every company. I'm looking how the CV is written, what's the projects inside that, okay, you built a new idea inside the bigger company. Okay, that's that's determination, that's grit. People who are listening now, but on the talent side, obviously they will be looking at these CVs themselves, or sorry, at job descriptions themselves, and going, I like that. I like the chance for ownership. I like the chance of impact. And you mentioned we'll talk about the why. So, what are some of the things that people should be, asking themselves before joining these types of company? To say, is this really what I want?
What do you want to do with your professional life, or what moves you? What makes you passionate and excited, right? So I totally and increasingly understand people who want safety and having their sort of constraints of their role in a big company, and that's okay, and that's totally legit, right? They want to spend their energy elsewhere. But I also believe that who we are at work is who we are at home as well. If you are a problem solver, if you like excitement of new problems, like I do, for instance, I will willingly throw myself in this kind of situation. So I think it's about thinking like, what do I get out of this, right? You cannot join an early stage startup and say, I expect safety, I expect 9 to 5, I expect amazing salary. That's not how it's going to work. So you will fail a lot, you will learn a lot, you will advance a lot, you'll get respect, you will achieve lots of things, but you may not be able to quantify them or measure them to any traditional kind of yardstick, right? What my trade-off, for instance, was when I started this early stage company was the flexibility I get. I don't work within the constraints of 9 to 5. I don't think that's how you can work with smart adults. You just have to let people do their best work when and how they want to, right? So for me, this element was really important. Like, please don't push me to be in the office at 9. But if I want to deliver something at midnight, allow me to do that. And it's not like in praise of grind or anything. I do think you need to keep the balance, but it's about how people feel when people feel they can deliver their best work, right? So if you want to join an early stage startup, you should think about an incredible opportunity to learn, an incredible opportunity to have impact, working directly with brilliant minds that, there are, founders, leadership team, being able to build from scratch, being able to test many of your ideas, right? So forget the safety and jump in. And I think it's really exciting because your learning curve is incredibly fast. They always talk about, dog years in startups, but it's really true. Probably in a span of 1 or 2 years, you can learn and access projects that you would probably have to wait for years in bigger companies. So just consider who you are, how you are, what suits you best, and give it a go, right? But in my experience hiring recruiters for my team, I realized that it's mainly the attitudes, the people who don't think about the role as something strict. They never think about, how many people should I interview at first stage and how many people should I send to the hiring manager? This is the ABC in the CV and ABC in the job description. Think about, why is this role necessary? Is this role necessary? Where does this role fit in the org design, right? What is the composition of this team? How do people get on in this team, right? Who are the champions of this team? Who are the people who, motivate everyone else? How is this new manager doing? What is her or his management style? All of these things will help you recruit. So you need to have this open attitude and sort of view of the role. So it's always asking questions, observing, listening, being very respectful, never just like, okay, let's do it. So it just doesn't work. And I encourage strongly even people who join as interns to start their learning process with asking questions, right? Just observe, listen, ask questions, question everything to find the best possible solution. I think that works. You will not always have the luxury of being able to question and think before you start, but increasingly this will help you make the best decision next time around. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. I also think, our job is we're the holders of everything. The candidates' expectations, processes, if they trust you enough to share everything, the hiring team, everything. We're the gatekeeper of knowledge. That's how I look at our jobs. And
absolutely,
if you can answer every single question that the candidate gives you in that first call without you having to go on Slack and message someone or say push it to the next interview, that should be the best compliment that you can have, in my opinion, for a job. And for example, whenever I speak to people, I always say we. Whenever I work with a company, it's we. And then the best compliment I get is, "Oh, you work for them." I was like, "I work with them. I don't work internally, but I can answer any question you have." And that's the level you need to get to every single stakeholder you have about their leadership style, their team culture, the growth plans they have, because we are the holders of that information.
Exactly.
I also just want to highlight, and again, I know you mentioned obviously the working styles and so the working flexibility. To not underestimate the true difficulty it is to work with early stage companies, like the pure hours sometimes you do have to put in. It is long, and I think that's probably one that I think kind of excites a certain group of people, but then turns off another certain group of people.
Yeah.
But like a normal week shouldn't feel like you're not doing. I mean, in my opinion, 50, sometimes 60 hours, depending on the company. That's not an abnormal week. That's quite usual. At least from the experience I've had.
You can sustain that pace, or you should sustain that pace for a short period of time. And you should not glorify it either, right? So recently had a conversation with some founders, and we spoke about everybody being in the office and living it together. So I was like, but you shouldn't have to sleep in the office, and spend every waking hour. This disconnecting is healthy, and it's just not sustainable to work so many hours for such a long time. Neither should you, because then this stress will kind of pour into all the aspects of your life, and that's not ultimately good for the business either. I think you need to put milestones in place, right? So for me, the early stage, like first 4 months, was like pure recruitment. I think it was like recruiting 40 people in 3 months or something, but always with a view that after that has happened, I will have a person to add in my team, which I eventually did, right? Because you just cannot. That's not a normal pace. Even if you didn't have any responsibilities in your life, and I have children, I want to be with them, right? So easily like 10, 11 hours sometimes, work there until your eyes pop out, but it's only like for a short period of time. And sometimes I think we forget that chaos in startups is chaos because we haven't dealt with it. It shouldn't be chaos after 5 years. Like there needs to be a progression where you're solving things, right? So if we're looking at the same chaos after 5 years, then we're doing something terribly wrong, right? So you work on something, you solve that problem, then you move on to the next problem. And especially like in talent acquisition, well, when you look at talent operations and how you optimize the tools, and especially when there are not many people, like I never had the luxury of coordinators, neither did I necessarily need them with an ATS I used and so on. You just optimize, and every time your cycle of project is shorter. So that tiny bit of time that you have, you invest it in the new initiative, right? So you get better at the things you're doing, then you do them faster, then you learn from them, then you move on. Sometimes you fail, you have to go back to the start and so on. But I want to go back to something you said before, which is we, and representing the company and candidate, being able to answer candidates' questions. If you don't know the answer to candidates' question, just say, I don't know, but I will find out for you. That's totally legit. But one thing that I do with people who join my team, my talent acquisition managers, is allow them to explore what the company does and come back to me with a pitch of the company. And sometimes people get really scared and like, oh, I don't know anything. No, go out and find out, learn, listen, do your onboarding, and then pitch the company to me. I don't allow them to go out and recruit until they can pitch the company to me, until they get it right. How are you going to sell what we do if you don't understand? That's one aspect. And the other aspect is the tools we're using. I will not go ahead and train my people on every step of the SOP or every step on the ATS. I will just say, like, here's the ATS we use, here's the tutorial, go ahead and explore. And when you're ready, create a test job for me with all its stages, right? And sometimes, and here's where the attitude is really important, sometimes people get really scared because they have questions at every single stage. They think like, I'm going to break something. There's nothing to break. It's just Tester McTesterson. It's a mock candidate with a mock job there, right? But the people who have the right attitude are the ones who they Google things, they explore things, they go deeply into tutorial, and they come to you only when they cannot solve the problem themselves, or when they have exhausted everything else, or when they already have it set up. It won't be perfect, but it will be pretty close, right? So it's about how do you find your way within the system that we're using? Nobody can really teach you that. And it's ridiculous. I wouldn't want somebody to teach me how to use a certain tool. That's a little bit limiting to me. Like, let me understand how intuitive the tool is for me and how I can make the best use out of it, right? And there are so many smart people who just like, I'll take 2 days, and then they go ahead and they learn something, and they know how to do it, because next time around they'll just own it properly as if they have been with the company for months, right?
I think that's also a really good tell into how that working relationship you can lead that person better, because you start to get a really good understanding. Okay, we need the drivers, but okay, maybe we need to coach them on what that means for us. You as a leader get a really good chance. I love the fact that you don't let them go to market until they can pitch the company. I
does more harm
in that. I've recruited for many years. When I travel, I usually end up working in one of my clients' offices because it's easy, right? And I'm usually working for them at that point. So, but over the last, I say, 8 or 9 years of doing that, only one company listened to me pitch their business. So when I say listened, like they had the recruitment team, but every time we was taking a call, we had to go into a phone booth or into another room. And I do get it. Obviously, we're talking about salaries, so of course there is that element there. I understand.
Very sensitive.
Only one team was like, no, take it here. It was quite a small team, so they were happy to listen. So they could help coach me on it. Everyone else didn't care. It was just like, no, just go do what you want. It's like, that was wild to me. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm representing you. Like, surely you should listen to how I'm doing it, and vice versa. Let me listen to how you do it so I can get better. Yeah,
absolutely. You're the mouthpiece for the company. I mean,
literally.
And when it comes to like this silly discourse of like, oh, internal talent acquisition team, external talent acquisition, it's not a competition. We're not at odds. You see what I mean? It's, for me, a portfolio of options that you have, right? Sometimes you will have a niche role internally that you may not want to use your internal team for the role, right? You may want to use your trusted partner. And when I talk about trusted partners, I mean, as you can understand, dozens of people pitch their recruitment agencies to me on a daily basis, right? But I only want to work with the ones who understand the business, right? And for them to understand the business, I need to sit with them, right? So obviously the conditions have to be right. We need to align on whatever they want to charge or the model of business or whatever it is. But then I need to train them on how to sell the business, right? Because it can do more harm than good pitching in a non-optimal way, just like your untrained recruiters can do. So those people will learn, first of all, how to sell the business, sell the idea, sell opportunity to the candidate. But you also need to train them on how to use your internal tools, right? So they can easily jump on your ATS and lead the process through there, because what you don't want is, if you're using external agencies just to bring your candidates, it's like, okay, so that's the sourcing part, right? I want you to do everything until the end. I want you to work internally with my hiring managers and know how to do it, right? So through building this relationship, which takes time but is really important, you can trust that partner bringing you a candidate. Like, don't bring me 10 candidates that are average that I'm just going to discard. Just bring me one candidate who truly understands what we do, and as my external partner, that they can solve the problem that I have at hand. And that's the big difference, I think, in investing in the quality of these relationships early on. And like, next time around I need a product manager, I know who to call. Next time I need a data scientist, I know who to call. And this person will be honest enough, and they will trust the relationship we have built and tell me there's no one in the market for that salary range, right? Or this is what's not exciting for the candidates, whatever it is. But you need that honest feedback from outside. And it's the difference between, understanding and hiring wisely. And like we said at the beginning, okay, I need this person from Cambridge or Oxford for this amount of money. It's just, that's like a fictional candidate. That's not the reality of the market, right?
I think it also comes down to quality is kind of a big element. And an early stage companies, we have to build with high velocity. We have to, build scrappy and then go back and tidy it up at some point, of course. But there needs to be the outlook that there needs to be key decisions that need to be quality led. And obviously that's
Mm.
down to you as the talent acquisition, the people manager, whoever's coming in to kind of start how you mean to go on. If everything becomes scrappy, then there's going to be a calamity waiting to happen down the line. So you need to kind of pick and choose certain elements.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate you sitting down and being transparent around kind of your perception of this world, because I love working in this world. The way
Me too.
the way you think is exactly how I think. My wife was playing a game with me yesterday. She was asking me various questions. I asked them back, and one of the questions was, "What's one thing you wish I would stop doing, but you know I won't?" And she was like, "Working so much." She was like, she went, "You just work all the time," which I know she's a saint, and she does listen to this, so now hopefully she's smiling. She is a saint because she does put up a lot with it. But I work stupid hours because I enjoy it, and I work for startups who ask for stupid requests sometimes because I enjoy the challenge of going, we can get it. It's going to take a bit of time, but that we can get because I've seen it before. Let's go and get it. So it is a really cool environment to be in. It's just super challenging at times
Yeah,
for
you need
everybody.
to choose it, right? Nobody, like, no one was born, or even, I don't think very few people like early on were like, oh, I really want to work in talent acquisition. Like, it's a profession most of the people stumble upon, right? I came to talent acquisition, well, from academic management, having studied lifelong learning, then entering, building internship program, and then eventually doing this. And I love it. You have to love it. And when you love it, it doesn't really feel like work. I'm not saying you should spend like 24 hours working on it. You need to take healthy breaks, but it's about solving the problems. I mean, even in your free time, like when somebody poses a challenge, you spend enough time solving the problem. It's about wanting to do best for the certain situation, but it needs to be, again, going back to like why you should do it, needs to be sort of reciprocate, right? So you need to work for the company you believe in, for the project you believe in, with people you believe in, and see what there is for you. What I'm always looking at, like, what is the team I'm going to be working with, right? I want to be surrounded by smart people. Who is going to be my manager? I'm looking for somebody to allow me to make mistakes and be creative, and who doesn't control the hours I do, but the output of what I do, right? So it needs to kind of like there needs to be a trade-off. You need to decide like why you're in this, and there are many dispassionate recruiters, right? Like, haven't you been through recruitment process before you did this? We're like, somebody's interviewing, you're like, well, this just feels robotic. I don't see any passion in this. Sell me the story. Sell me, where's the narrative of the job? Be passionate about it. And I think it comes off. It comes off strongly with the candidates.
Well, we're hiring right now for ourselves, and because again, we're early stage. We're 3 full time, 1 part time. So how I explain it to anyone is that we're not everyone's cup of tea. Like, you're either going to love this environment or you're going to really hate it. If you want process and everything down by the tears, like, this isn't for you. But if you want to go out there, make the mistakes, learn and grow and really have that ownership, then there's lots to talk about of it. But it's just not for everyone. And I think that's how we have to look at hiring for the companies, choosing to work for these types of companies. Not everyone is going to love it, and you might join it thinking you're going to love it and get there and absolutely hate it, or vice versa. But like I said, I really appreciate you taking the time. So if someone wanted to follow up, get to know you a little bit better, pick your brain a little bit more, where is the best place that they can find you?
LinkedIn is the great place. I'm very good at navigating through the noise of LinkedIn and finding the right. But apart from its really sort of like bad aspect, it's still a good place to create community and to have good conversations. So yeah, it's a good place to continue talking about this. And I'd love to connect to other people who have done this and who enjoy this, because when this, like when you get to the stage of like 500 or 1,000 people, we're no longer the ones who are needed there, right? So you need to think like, at what level of the company do I bring the best element, and where do I kind of thrive, right? So happy to connect to other people who want to do this or who have done this before.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Eden.
Bye-bye.